Now, I am going to do an episode over the coming weeks with Scott Tyndall from Fuel In. We will go through some discussion around body composition and off season and laying good habits. We did it last year. I want to have a refresher on that topic with him. I think he's a great resource for us. But I did have a lot of questions around this subject. And so I'm going to finish off today with some contextual stuff. We've got 3 questions here. The first one is from Nicola. And Nicola is from Missouri again. Two representatives from Missouri. Who would have thunk it? But here we go. Nicola says, I'm worried about gaining weight in the off season as my volume of training goes down, but my appetite tends to stay the same. Do you have any recommendations? Well, I do. And I think sometimes the first thing I'll say is a lot of our eating tends to be somewhat habitual. But there's several answers to this without actually knowing you, Nicola. So I don't have the full context here. But generally, if you or anyone listening happens to be an athlete, when they are training and racing, they get quite lean as they go into that. There's nothing wrong. And so I would say appropriate to add a few pounds of body weight over the course of the non-racing season. And actually, it tends to happen pretty organically, naturally, when the winter comes in. If you're going into the winter, people tend to carry a few more pounds than when they're spending more time outside, etc. But I think generally the off-season time is the time that you really want to double down and create habits of a platform of healthy eating. And so in talking to Scott Tyndall from Fuel In, he said something last season, which I thought was really, really helpful, which is when you don't have as heavy training demands, and those training demands force an athlete to consume a whole bunch of calories and particularly layered on top of it a whole bunch of carbohydrate and even more protein. It becomes a battle to get enough calories in for really training athletes. When you remove those demands and training stress gets lighter, it opens up the opportunity to actually really double down on something that all of us should be doing all the time anyway, which is to create a platform of healthy eating. So if we're not training that much, quote, most of us are training pretty consistently anyway, but we're not training that much relative to hard training demands, we can build our daily eating around really high quality proteins, tons of fiber and great vegetables and fruits, and then have enough carbohydrates to support our daily living and the training that we do. And it is that foundation that we carry and build throughout the off season that then when training demands go up, we want to, and here's the key thing, maintain that platform of healthy eating. And all we're doing then is throttling up, for the most part, carbohydrate on top of it. So when we talk to Scott, we're going to dig into that a little bit, but that's a way to think about it. So build your meal plates over the course of the off season with protein, fibrous foods, so a lot of vegetables, a lot of fruits, etc., and then layering on just a little bit less carbohydrate because your body isn't demanding that in training. And that's a really good way to go about it. I would also say that the off season is a really good time if you are someone that is looking to make body composition improvements. This is the time to really do it. This is the time that you could, under guidance and supervision, a lot of Purple Patch athletes use Fuel In. You can find out more about Fuel In at fueling.com/purplepatch. Sorry, that's very bad. At purplepatchfitness.com/fuelin, I should say. And a lot of athletes use their platform and their app and their support from their coaches and nutritionists to help them build really healthy habits and good quality eating. Really, really smart way to approach it. They're a great team. They're a great resource, and they will hold your hand through the whole journey. And I think that's a really good time to do it. The big mistake that I see is athletes try and shift body composition while training very, very hard. And not only are you managing a lot of stresses there, you also get into a little bit of trouble and sometimes a little bit of accumulation of fatigue or injury risk because they're underfueling relative to their needs. So don't worry about it. And secondly, finally, Nicola, you don't want to be managing your weight through training per se. So I would just encourage you to shift your mindset. Your body composition and weight management is around your eating habits and your stress management, and you're just fueling to support the demands of your training. And so there's a little shift to occur there with that. Don't think about burning more calories, because that's just going to lead you to doing more because you're worried about body composition. So let's build healthy habits first and then support the training with appropriate fueling. That's a way that you might want to think about it as you go ahead. Feel free to reach out to us, Nicola, or anyone that's got more questions on that, and we can help you privately. Just ping us at info@purplepatchfitness.com. We can give you some more information there and help you. So if anyone is interested finding out more on that, we'll try and give you some resources and some guidance, because I know that it's a pretty comprehensive subject. We can also introduce you to the folks at Fueling if you would like, and maybe get a consultation with them to help you set yourself up. 2 more questions to go, guys, and I'm pretty well at keeping it succinct here. This is another anonymous one. This is fueling and off-season training. How do I adapt my session fueling and daily nutrition habits? Well, we just talked a little bit about building the platform of healthy eating first. And I think it's really about, think about throttling on a motorcycle. How much are you really revving the engine? If your training demand is less, you don't need to think as much about fueling during the workouts. So if you're doing anything under 60 minutes, you really don't need to consume calories during a workout, in my opinion. You also don't need to overly worry about race fueling and hydration, because you shouldn't be doing any training that's trying to meet the demands of that. This is not the time of the year that you're doing race simulations, piling in 60, 80, 90, 100, 120 grams of carbohydrate per hour in most of your sessions. You can turn your back a lot on the gels and components like that. Very, very high intensity sessions, you might choose, and we only do 1 or 2 a week at most, you might choose to do a little bit of fueling in there. But for the most part, a lot of your off-season training can be sans or without caloric support, alrighty? Because we're not doing much long, extended duration stuff. Once you go beyond 90 minutes or so, you're probably leaning into some supplementary support. If you do get to go outside, and you do get to go and do some low stress bike riding, for example, and you go and ride for 3-4 hours, nothing wrong with doing that occasionally, then you can eat some caloric support, but I would lean more into real food in the off season, and that's just a personal preference. The area that I do think is important to maintain is that habit of post-workout fueling. And so with any of the sessions that are 40, 50, 60 minutes and beyond, ensuring that you're replacing calories, protein and carbohydrate primarily after the workout, it's a really good habit. It gives you a sense of control. It's going to have a positive impact on your eating choices in the rest of the day. It's going to energize and help you perform in your other activities in life. So I like athletes always to maintain post-workout fueling. Alrighty, pretty simple stuff. And finally, the question, I think we're treading over trodden ground already here, but do you recommend reducing the amount? This is another anonymous one. Do you recommend reducing the amount of nutrition one consumes in off-season training, since the workouts are not race specific? Well, I'll repeat here just to finish. You don't need to consume like you're training for a race in session. We can remove all of that. The second component is your training demands are less. So your total caloric intake will be less. If you are trying to meet your training demands and your life demands, you want the demands are less, so you're going to consume less. So that's really important. But I'm going to double down here. And the reason I wanted to focus on this question, I'm going to double down and revisit what Scott said. This is a great time to build a platform of proper eating. So in other words, you are eating enough calories to support your daily demands with a ton of protein, a ton of vegetables, some good oils and fats, and enough carbohydrates. A really balanced eating program. And you go through and you build that as your bedrock. What you will have less of is the added supplemental, mostly carbohydrates that fuel the demands of your very heavy training. You're not going to have that right now. So that's where most of the caloric addition gets removed. And so when you've got that foundation, if you build that, when we go into in the Northern Hemisphere, January, February, March, and training starts to go boom, 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 and ramps up, you're adding calories from some additional protein and mostly carbohydrates to fuel that training demand. But you've got this bedrock and foundation of really healthy eating habits. I will say globally around nutrition and body composition, this is the time. It's a wonderful time to build your very positive habits around daily hydration, proper foundational eating habits. Get those in order when training stress is low. And when people do that, much like general off-season training, it really sets the foundation to make things much more simple and much more effective when we dial up the noise a little bit and we start asking you to train very, very hard. And that's it. That culminates our episode. Folks, thank you so much for all of your questions. But have a great end of your season if you're still racing. If you're excited to lay the bedrock, whether you're a triathlete, a runner, a cyclist, or you're looking to perform in life, it's a great time. And as ever, if you have any reach out or if you want to continue the discussion, info@purplepatchfitness.com. We'll see you next week. Take care. Guys, thanks so much for joining and thank you for listening. I hope that you enjoyed the new format. You can never miss an episode by simply subscribing. Head to the Purple Patch channel of YouTube and you will find it there and you could subscribe. Of course, I'd like to ask you, if you will subscribe, also share it with your friends. And it's really helpful if you leave a nice positive review in the comments. Now, any questions that you have, let me know. Feel free to add a comment and I will try my best to respond and support you on your performance journey. And in fact, as we commence this video podcast experience, if you have any feedback at all, as mentioned earlier in the show, we would love your help in helping us to improve. Simply email us at info@purplepatchfitness.com or leave it in the comments of the show at the Purple Patch page and we will get you dialed in. We'd love constructive feedback. We are in a growth mindset, as we like to call it. And so feel free to share with your friends. But as I said, let's build this together. Let's make it something special. It's really fun. We're really trying hard to make it a special experience. And we want to welcome you into the Purple Patch community. With that, I hope you have a great week. Stay healthy, have fun, keep smiling, doing whatever you do. Take care.